When we look at the story of Jesus speaking to the woman in the area of Tyre and Sidon, way outside of Jewish territory, we find a couple of things. One of the things we find is that Jesus still seems to be looking for a time of rest. It seems that everywhere he was going to go to find that time of rest, he found people there already either looking for him or waiting for him or bringing their needs to him. And Jesus now decides to leave the whole area where the Jews were. One of the amazing things that we almost need to notice right away in reading this story of the encounter between Jesus and this woman is that she seems to have heard of him. His fame has extended beyond a Jewish audience. What he's doing, what he's teaching, who he says he is, all of these things somehow have gotten to her ears. And she, noticing that he's in the area of her own towns, she decides to come looking for him. The possibility is that her daughter is home. She's demon-possessed, according to scriptures. She's an outsider looking in. And the way she addresses him is not just a polite sir, but the terminology she uses is clearly messianic. Because she begins by approaching him and saying, "Lord, Son of David." And at first, he doesn't even respond to her cries. "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me." He seems to be focused elsewhere. He does not want to enter into a conversation with her. It's when she keeps crying, "Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy," that we find the disciples perhaps a little bit annoyed, both at her, that keeps running after them and crying after them, and perhaps a little bit annoyed at Jesus too, because his silence has allowed her to continue with the crying out. And they come to Jesus and they say, "Lord, please send her away." And Jesus speaks a second time, or actually speaks for the first time, voicing actually what his silence meant. "I was sent only to those of the house of Israel." He had come as the promised Messiah of the Jews. He had come from the Father that had chosen them, the Jewish people, as his people. Even St. Paul later acknowledges that to the Jews first. And as she keeps crying out for mercy, he perhaps says aloud, not even maybe directed at her, but maybe for her to hear, "It is not good that someone would give the bread belonging to the children and give it to the little dogs." He'd already introduced the idea of the house of Israel. Now the analogy goes farther to maybe a table where the father is sitting down and he's feeding those that belong at table. And that's what leads us to perhaps the most important verse in the whole story, which is verse 27. She says in that verse, "True, Lord, but even the little dogs, the little pets, eat from the crumbs that fall from the master's table." With those words, she's one, acknowledging that true, she's an outsider. She doesn't belong like the children belong. Two, she's admitting that what she's really looking for is the crumbs, a little bit of mercy. She doesn't come stating rights, making demands. She actually comes acknowledging that she doesn't have a right to it. And I think that's what amazes Jesus. Remember that when Jesus went down to Nazareth, to his own country, he could do no miracles because there was no faith. And just a few chapters or a chapter later, when Peter walks on water and begins to sink, Jesus says, "O ye man of little faith." And now he finds in this outsider that has no rights and who's actually begging for a little bit of mercy, he finds a faith that he hasn't found in so many other people. And it amazes him. And for the first time, perhaps he addresses her directly. "O woman, great is your faith." And from that very moment, that very hour, her daughter, perhaps miles away, becomes completely healed and completely set free. Now, when we look at the totality of this story, there are three things that must become extremely important to us right away. Without these three, you have missed the point. One of them is we must still completely always look at Jesus. Jesus is the center, not the woman. He is the center of the story. Who he is, who she knows him to be, and what he's able to do. The second point that is of extreme importance is the woman. Her faith, her attitude, her surrender. I think this woman is an example of how we should all today approach the Father, the Son, and the Spirit with humility. What we find at the end of the story, we find that the gospel becomes universal through faith. All who believe have now a right to come to the Father's table. And what is so important to us to understand is that when we come to the table of the Lord, when we come to communion, when we come to the Eucharist, we do not come as little pets to look for crumbs. Because through Jesus Christ, we are invited to the table. We come to receive him. We come because of his grace, because of his love. We come because of our faith, that even that is a gift of God, that we would come to believe in him. We come to the Father, we're invited as adopted sons, belonging, no longer outsiders, like this woman was, but belonging, as beloved children, sons and daughters of Almighty God.